What a crazy weekend it's been with the Kaseya ransomware event and everything that's come out of that. I've been receiving a lot of questions regarding ransomware, and I've found that there's a lot of things that people either they don't understand or they need some help understanding and they need additional explanation. But one of the ones I see most commonly is obfuscation and encryption. What's the difference and why should I care? In this video, we're going to explore the differences between obfuscation and encryption, and when you're done here, you'll have a much better understanding. So let's set the stage. When we're talking about ransomware, why do we care about obfuscation and encryption being used at the same time? Well, obfuscation is what enables the attacker to eventually encrypt the data and hold it for ransom. So if the question comes up, which one is more important from a blue team monitoring perspective? I would spend more of my effort monitoring for obfuscation techniques or obfuscation behaviors. So with that introduction out of the way, why you care, let's first define obfuscation. This is changing the contents of a file or changing data in a way that can be reversed without having a secret key. Meaning you're going to follow some sort of method that may be publicly known to change the characters of data so that you can reverse it. And the main thing that you should take away here is it keeps the data from being easily understood. And in this case, we're saying it keeps the data from being easily monitored for, meaning AV engines may generate a signature for a specific type of malware or ransomware. Well, if you obfuscate that file in a different way, that signature is not going to match. But you could still de-obfuscate it, reverse the obfuscation process, and the machine is still going to be able to process that code. Whereas with encryption, encryption uses a key. That key, without that key, you've locked away the data. Neither the human, the AV engine, the computer processing the file will be able to do anything to that data, that file, without an encryption key. No key, no access. Now, before we move on to the practical examples of the obfuscation and the encryption, there is some room for confusion here, and I hear this quite a bit. If you have heard of the terms hashing and encoding, you may be thinking, well, these definitions, these explanations, they sound kind of familiar. Don't let your brain go there. They are very different and will be covered in another video. Just keep in mind, encoding enables obfuscation. It's not the other way around. I also find that there's a lot of confusion around encryption versus obfuscation, and it's because of how some people are introduced to encryption. Often, simpler encryption algorithms like a Caesar cipher are introduced because they are ciphers that are easily understood and can be demonstrated on a PowerPoint slide, but the Caesar cipher is what I would call classical encryption. It's not modern encryption. And in my opinion, and for the purposes of this video, the Caesar cipher is obfuscation. Alright, so getting into the practical side of the video. This is going to walk through at a very high level how ransomware gets into an environment. So step one, in this case, the Revel ransomware is delivered typically in 2019, 2020. It was delivered through a phishing email attachment that a user would execute to kick off the attack. It looks like in this Kaseya attack, it's been delivered through the actual Kaseya VSA servers through a 0-day with authentication, but it's very early. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. I haven't seen anything concrete either way. So once delivery of the ransomware has occurred, the ransomware, the attackers are going to leverage obfuscation. They're going to obfuscate commands like PowerShell maybe to hide the commands that they're running, hide the URLs that they're pulling down files from to evade detection of a typical antivirus like you would see, like a McAfee or a Kaspersky using a hash of a known bad malicious file. And then step three, once the obfuscated attack has occurred, the encryption of the files on the machine begins, and then they hold the data for ransom. I know there's a lot of people like myself, we're very visual learners, and as much as this video can help, I learn a lot from seeing things as well. So I do want to finish this up with some practical examples, some screenshots of some PowerShell obfuscation techniques. So you can see on the top one here, we take this invoke expression commandlet. They are pulling down something from that tiny URL, and then they apply a name to it called evil malware. Whereas in the second one, you can see they have a function called obfuscated string command, and then it takes that top string, the invoke expression that I just mentioned, and it obfuscates it, and it turns it into that purple text that you see below. Now you can see, with a slight variation in the obfuscation technique, you are now able to detect detection with most. Now before I end the video, I do want to share some screenshots, some practical examples of PowerShell obfuscation. So here you can see the top expression is obfuscated, and then it's actually turned into that purple text on the bottom there using a out obfuscated string command module on the bottom. So now, before I end the video, I know I'm a very visual learner, and even though this is a video and it's kind of one-way communication, I find some value in sharing what I can find. So here you can see the top is a PowerShell commandlet that it's running invoke expression commandlet, pulling down something from tiny URL. But in the bottom, you can see that that same string, that same command has been obfuscated and it's been turned into that purple text. And then going one step further, if you were to use PowerShell to initiate a ransomware attack, this is the end result of a text file that's been encrypted by a ransomware attack. Now, if you're early in your career and you haven't seen obfuscated data and you haven't seen encrypted data before, they can look very similar. So don't think that you can identify obfuscation versus encryption simply by judging the characters that you see on the screen. That's a very bad technique to adopt. All right, there you have it. Encryption versus obfuscation and how they can both be practically used in a ransomware attack. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this, and I'll see you next time.